myriad truths.
With episode I guess being out for a week now and Reload being completely done, I'd say that the entire remake of Persona 3 has achieved its goal. After clearing lots of sales, getting a new wave of fans to the series, and everyone excitingly waiting for another remake of an older game, it's pretty clear that ATLUS made a wise decision to remake the game. So what's the issue? Why make a video called "Should ATLUS continue making remakes?" Isn't that an obvious question? Well, yes and no. In order for me to answer my question, we have to go deep into what actually a remake attempts to accomplish. A remake is hugely done by a company for numerous amounts of reasons: updated graphics, better gameplay, a new style on the OST, and for making more money for the company, obviously. But they're still also trying to attract new fans while also doing this, so they can make even more money. I'd say this is what a remake of a game usually attempts to accomplish. The fans become happy, and obviously the company is happy. But then we have to ask ourselves, so what about the original players of the game? Do they matter? Without the original players of the game, obviously the game wouldn't need a remake in the first place because there would be no fan base to play it. So we have to factor that in as well. And that's kind of where the main issue comes from remakes. Mainly from Persona, because I don't really see other games having this, at least in my experience from remakes. The only other remakes I can think of on the top of my head are Resident Evil and Final Fantasy VII, which I never played the original versions of, but I can say I enjoyed the remakes. So going back to Persona 3, as I said, I've had numerous amounts of opinions on Persona 3 that maybe wouldn't fit the public eye the best, because I think Persona 3, Reload at least, was taken in a different direction that FES was not supposed to be. And again, that's not really a bad thing. But I would just say Persona 3 Reload is Persona 3, but doesn't feel like Persona 3 at the same time. Let's take episode I guess for example. While I was watching on Faz's stream the day it released, when I saw the Shadow Makoto scene, I can't deny I felt slightly disappointed in the censoring. While some people say it's unimportant to the story, I think it shows ATLUS trying to kind of shelter a modern audience from something that literally explains the whole concept of Persona 3. Persona 3 is a disturbing game. I mean, it's literally teenagers facing themselves with death every now and then and fighting monsters in an hour that doesn't exist by shooting themselves in the head. I mean, come on, but you honestly wouldn't get that vibe from how Reload explains the story. I mean, yes, Reload is very somber, it does that correctly, in terms of how sad it can be, but it doesn't really explain the fact of how dark and edgy it's supposed to be. And I know that people joke about Persona being edgy, but I mean, it's literally part of how the story is trying to be foretold to the player. Another example is after you beat Yukari in the arena fight, she attempted to snatch the key from Aigis' chest, which was said to kill her in a few conversations prior by Metis. But again, you wouldn't know this if you only played episode Aigis, because that wasn't included. They took that out. That was a FES thing only. That was probably done because they wanted to make Yukari less hated, but I think it's a crucial part of her character arc and a major demonstration of how just badly she wanted to see her friend again. It's pure desperation, and that's what made the scene so great. I disagree with taking it out. I really think that trying to make Yukari more likable in an entire story where she's supposed to be the antagonist is a poor idea, and the fans are going to support her regardless. They did back then, so they would now. So why sugarcoat and try to censor her true feelings and emotions? And look, I'm not trying to compare FES and Reload in this vid, that's not my objective, but both games do something better than the other one, and both games do something worse that the other doesn't do. But I have to admit, when ATLUS made Reload, it felt as though they were almost scared of showing some things, and this is what I don't like. This is what makes me worried about ATLUS and remakes. It's a known fact that when ATLUS made Persona 3 Reload, the original staff who helped in making FES was nowhere there. The only mentions of the previous staff who were in FES are just a couple of the VAs, and they had like a bunch of background roles that didn't really matter too much in terms of voice acting. But in terms of the actual project, mechanics, gameplay, none of that was to be found. None of the original cast or the original staff that helped make FES was there. This is what my main issue and my main gripe is. Because another very popular game, Persona 2, which is constantly talked about in the community in terms of needing a remake, is probably going to be remade next, and I'm honestly scared for it. I can almost say 100% that Persona 2 was going to be remade because Atlus needs that sweet, sweet bread, and Reload made them a lot of cash, and obviously the fans would like it. If Persona 2 remade came out, hell yeah, I'd buy it. I mean, I've been wanting to play another version of Persona 2 for so long, but I have to ask myself, at what cost am I desperate for it? Seeing how Atlus treated Reload, I can already see a glimpse of how they're going to treat Persona 2, and it won't be pretty. Persona 2, to be frank, is probably the most disturbing game in the franchise, probably worse than Persona 3, with a lot of dark and uncomfortable scenes, very deep messages, and yeah, this fucking guy. This into consideration, a modern Atlus team is not going to, withhold any of this stuff. A Persona 2 team member inside is what we need here, and most likely the Persona 2 team is probably all long gone, off doing things, or yeah, probably just not in contact, or for whatever reason, Atlus is not going to use them as a source for remaking Persona 2. They're not. They didn't do it for 3, so why would they do it for 2? Now, when I mention a remake, there are 3 things that people are always going to bring up, and let me just say it's not what I'm talking about. Graphics, gameplay, OST. These are always given in an Atlus remake or a new release. So when I'm talking about Atlus basically folding on a remake, I'm not talking about these 3 categories, because they always cook on the graphics, the gameplay, and the OST. They always cook. So I'm talking about the story translation and the characters. With how 2 is, it scares me what a modern Atlus would do to a Persona 2. I don't think they would capture the theme and the message of what 2 is about at all. Not to mention they would censor multiple things or probably take out stuff they dislike simply because the fact it might hinder the ability to make money. Look, I think Atlus is a great company, but because they need that cash, I don't see them putting it past to get rid of things or maybe take a few things out that they consider they just dislike. I mean, what's stopping them from doing that? They did that for P4 when they removed the Yosuke and Yu gay romance. So, I mean, theoretically, what's stopping them from removing the Jun and Tatsuya romance? I mean, seriously. That sounds like a very low possibility, but again, I don't see it. I don't put it past Atlus to do that. It's even worse because new fans will probably play this game assuming it was always like this, when in reality things have been altered. Not to mention P1 is also right around the corner, along with some talks about SMT. I mean, SMT remakes are usually a large rarity in Atlus, but I do hear a lot of talk about Digital Devil Saga possibly getting a remake. At least that's what fans would really like to see. And we already know that the Digital Devil Saga cast, the staff that helped make it, is probably all long gone off doing their own thing. So Atlus would make it in their own image and put whatever the spin on the story they want, and kind of ruin the original objective of the story. Even though I have my small gripes about every game, even 5, which I dislike the most, I still love these games and I hold them to a very high extent, and I have more hours in them than any JRPG I've played. I probably have about combined 3,000 hours in all Persona games. So what I mean by saying that is that I just really love these games. So when I critique them harshly like this, and I critique Atlus making remakes, it's because I want the best out of a potential game. If I could have known that I could have stayed with Persona 4 Golden rather than, let's say, Persona 4 Rewind, which they changed Naoto and Kanji because they wanted to avoid controversy, I would take it all back. I would stay with Golden, and I would never ask for a Rewind, even though I get new sweet graphics, new sweet OST, and new gameplay. And I'm not saying they are going to do that, but again, a lot of talks have been circulating around Atlus keeping Kanji and Naoto the same, because back then it caused a lot of controversy, and it would cause even more controversy now. So, that's just always something you gotta keep in mind. So, yeah, I mean, to answer my own question, should Atlus keep making remakes? I say yes, but with one condition. It would be nice to include the original creators of the game or some of the staff in the game so the message isn't lost. That's all I ask. Again, I'm very glad Reload happened, but I think it'd be great for Atlus in general to try and be looser with the game's message and characters not being censored so much and things being taken out that don't need to be taken out. Like pure bigotry, yes, that does need to be taken out, but I mean things that show a character in some scenes that may seem uncomfortable, but they help achieve the story's message. So yeah, that's about it. Again, comment below what you think. I read them all, I really do. And yeah, if I've hit a nerve or you disagree with a certain opinion you don't like, that's fine. Criticize me all you want, but again, no hate speech. You know what's inappropriate and you know what isn't, so yeah. But yeah, peace out. Take care of yourselves.